Take a step back in time and see the Iron Avengers' first meeting with the White Queen of the Hellfire Company. What'll happen next? Well, let's hop into the pages of Invincible Iron Man, issue number 6, and find out what happens next together, shall we? So then, as we join the book, Tony Stark is licking his wounds back in New Jersey. In the last issue, he was defeated by Fei Long, the evil Orchis futurist who not only stole his company and his birthright, but is also using Stark Unlimited technology to build mutant hunting sentinels. This issue, though, has nothing to do with any of that. In fact, it mostly concerns Tony writing his autobiography again. Yeah, remember that back from the first volume? I suppose getting beaten up by a guy who was previously an X-Men foe and then joining an alliance with Emma Frost served to knock some memories of old adventures loose in Tony's head, and he wants to write it all down while he's still feeling motivated. It's from there we take a trip back to the 70s, or maybe it's the 80s, as Tony himself says a lot of his life blurs together and he doesn't even think about it as much in terms of decades anymore, but in terms of what suit he was wearing. And at this moment in time, the suit du jour is none other than the Silver Centurion, which is maybe my third or fourth favorite Iron Man suit. Tony admits that the shoulder pads may have been a little much, but they were aerodynamic, damn it, and very much in style at the time. We see Tony engaging in a training exercise with the rest of the members of the then West Coast Avengers, Hawkeye, Tigra, Mockingbird, and even Wonder Man back in a time when he was more prominent, but of course, as it turns out, this actually isn't a training exercise at all. This is all a mental illusion created by U.S. Army General Dinger, who has called Tony and his bodyguard Iron Man to the base today to talk about some stolen tech that he would very much like to get back. Now, Tony, who somehow manages to look exactly like both Hall and Oates at this point in history, swears up and down that he doesn't make weapons anymore, but as we discover, General Dinger here was actually a friend of Howard Stark, and Tony does actually use his big brain to help the US government when it comes to matters of defense. Mainly the sort of defense that one would need from world-ending super mutants like Magneto. Yeah, apparently the reason Magneto didn't get up to more dirt back in the day is because Tony had helped to create anti-magnetic deterrence, and I mean, it makes sense when you fly around in an iron suit and this dude could basically end your whole career by crushing you like a damn soda can anytime he wanted. Though it's not the threat of magnets that the government is worried about today, it's the threat of all those psychic mutants that could very easily bewitch someone's mind. Using a repurposed Magneto helmet, Dinger and his people were actively working on anti-psi blockers. But just when they thought they were making progress, suddenly out of the blue their prototype goes missing, stolen by a woman who seems to have been created out of whole cloth. Obviously, this is the work of a rogue mutant psychic, and the general doesn't trust anyone besides Tony Stark to deal with the problem, and as such he opts to send him to New York to have a secret one-on-one meeting with Nick Fury Sr. It's actually fun to see the Silver Centurion fly overhead in New York City, a place that Tony admits he hasn't been to in a very long time. We even briefly get to see black-suited Spider-Man swinging along too. Just in case you maybe weren't feeling nostalgic enough already, Nick Fury is there at the meeting, which just so happens to take place in a dark, dingy alley somewhere in Hell's Kitchen. I actually like getting reminded of Tony's long-standing relationship with Nick Fury, because if you don't remember, Tony Stark, just Tony, was a supporting character in the old S.H.I.E.L.D. book back in the day. In fact, it's because Tony knows Colonel Fury so well, he realizes that everything about this meeting is wrong, right down to Nick making implications that Tony and Iron Man are the same person, which he doesn't know. In fact, no one at this point knows. Everyone assumes that Iron Man is just Tony's bodyguard at this point in history. As you probably guessed, that's not actually Nick Fury at all, but Emma Frost in disguise. Yeah, this is apparently the new retconned version of how the two met. With the jig truly up and her back against the wall, Emma decides to use her amazing psychic power to enlist some muscle to help her deal with the Iron Man problem. Lucky for her, she chose the venue, which just so happens to be above the very famous bar with no name. New York's premier supervillain bar, which today just so happened to be hosting a meeting of the Sinister Six, and oh yeah, Turk, the long-standing Daredevil supporting character, because if we're doing retro Marvel callbacks, obviously we gotta get Turk as he looked when he first premiered. The combined force of all of these different villains actually really gives Iron Man a run for his money, so much to the point that in his internal monologue, Tony admits that maybe he's been a little too rough on Spider-Man. Geez, if these are the villains he fights regularly and he's just a kid, then he really must be something special. Now, how does Tony power out of this situation? Well, actually, he doesn't. In a surprise twist, the moral of this story seems to be that Tony really shouldn't have underestimated Emma back in those days, or now for that matter. The Sinister Six break Iron Man's own psi block locker, which allows Emma to go inside his head and delete memories of this entire meeting, only it doesn't work because Tony was already suffering from a concussion from the fight, and yeah, I guess a concussion kinda just cancels out psychic shenanigans. No, I don't understand how it works either, just go along with it. Back in the present, Tony is met by Rhodey. It seems that War Machine went and raided one of Stark's old weapon stockpiles, and now he thinks he's finally ready to take the fight to Fei Long right now. And Tony better do the job and do it right the first time, because any failure could see him branded as a criminal to the entire world. And it's on that note right there the comic comes to a close, everybody. And so that was Invincible Iron Man issue number 6, everybody. And overall, I thought it was fine, just fine, nothing particularly special. I like a good throwback as much as the next person, and Duggan certainly has a lot of love and affinity for this time period in Marvel Comics. I'm also not going to sit here and say that it totally derailed the story they were already telling, because clearly if it's important enough for Duggan to tell a whole story about how Tony and Emma met in the first place, it's probably going to come back later. In many ways, too, I guess it's a story about Iron Man feeling at his absolute lowest and reminiscing about other times in which he lost, but how he was able to dig himself out of the pit of despair and get back to being a hero again. Overall, I'd give this one a 7 out of 10. Perfectly enjoyable as it is, but I'm definitely more interested to see what's happening next in the ongoing battle between Stark and Fei Long. Hey there everyone, it's your old pal Cape Joel again, thanking you so much for watching to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, why not check out my Amazon link down in the description. Yes, that's right, the Cape Joel channel officially has its own Amazon storefront now. You can pick up a comic or anything else for that matter, and if you did, you'd really be helping me in the channel. So with that out of the way everyone, I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.